Good morning. I'd first of all like to start off by saying thank you to my two good friends for their donation. They've always supported me in everything I do, and I just like you to know I really do appreciate you. And when I get home, when I'm back in Ireland, I'll call in and I'll bring a bit of good smoke and we'll have a chat and a catch up. But thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate it. As I say, I'm going to go back to the gym maybe today or tomorrow. Tomorrow maybe I'll go back to the gym with this, and thank you very much for facilitating that. Um, I was going to yesterday. I posted the dichotomy of control, Epictetus' dichotomy of control, what is within our control and what is not within our control. Basically, our bodies are not up to us, our reputation is up to us, and all the rest of this bollocks. But then my soul then reminded me of a comment that I made on one of Dr. Sugru's lectures. And it was a comment about on a lecture about Schopenhauer, about Schopenhauer. And what I'm going to do is, because I'm not able to copy and paste the comments, or I'm not even able to, because sometimes I'm not able to copy and paste the comments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to the lecture in the comments. And you can read the comments yourself and maybe listen to the lecture. I'll tell you why you should listen to the lecture. Well, don't listen to the lecture. I don't give a fuck what you do. But anyway, I'm going to put a link to the lecture in the comments. And I'm going to put another link to another lecture as well. I'm going to put a link to the lecture on the Book of Job, because that's really very relevant to what I want to talk about. A lecture on the Book of Job. Now, Book of Job is one of my favourite books in the Bible. And it's one of my and there's a few very important things to take from this lecture, but they're both 45 minutes long. The lectures are 45 minutes long, and Dr. Sugru is one of the best lecturers that there is, because he really breaks it down in a way that's very very understandable and very enjoyable and very it's very easily parsed. They're absolute. They're fucking gold. You know what I mean? They're gold. But as I say, I'll put links to these lectures in the comments. You can listen to them or not listen to them. So I was going to talk about what is and what is not within your control. But basically, what I said on the lecture about Schopenhauer is the thing to when it comes to understanding Schopenhauer, who was a miserable bastard. Now, Schopenhauer was a miserable bastard. He was just a miserable bastard. And a grumpy, miserable old bastard. And I used to call it Western Buddhism. Because it was very much the Western interpretation of Buddhism. Now, Alan Watts did a brilliant job on this. He really did when I started this whole journey, I used to walk around listening to Alan Watts. This was the start of it, but this was given to me by God to listen to Alan Watts, because Buddhism is, if you do an interpretation of the opposites, Buddhism would be God. Like Buddha was the personification of God. And it's that simple. And then Buddha was the personification of God. But I started out with a little bit of studying a bit of Buddhism. Now, not to the fucking same depths as I've met people who have read the original scriptures and everything else. But the difference is, I absolutely thought about it and tried to apply it. And I found that these affirmations didn't work. But anyway, I'm not going to digress on that. But what I wanted to say was, one thing always resonated me with the Buddha. What the Buddha said, and the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, what the Buddha said was, don't listen to me, think for yourselves. Think for yourselves, think for your fucking selves. That's the most important thing the Buddha said, think for yourselves. Now, and this, so, because the universe writes many narratives and manifests itself in many ways. And life is perception and life is opinion, but think for yourselves. You create your own reality. But there's still an objective reality. But by your reality, you create your objective reality. You can be a creator. Do you understand? You can be the creator. You can be the creator. Like, this is creation. Like, if I change the way people think, this is creation. This is creation. The behaviors change. Everything changes. This is creation. Do you understand me? Anyway, right, so I was talking about what is not within our control. So, even back when I was in primary school, my mother used to teach the religion in primary school. She used to teach the religion to me in primary school. And even back then, one of the first things she taught us was the distinction between higher and lower animals is that the higher animals have free will, and the distinction, this is Christianity now. That the distinction to be made between humans and in the book of Genesis, that God made man to oversee all other animals. But this is a rather egotistical perspective that was seemingly gathered by man. It's an egotistical perspective assumed by man, a position of authority assumed by man. Do you know what I mean? Because really, like, what we actually are is animals. We are animals. We are actually mammals, in fact. Mammals. We are mammals. We are animals. And really to think that we're the guardians of the galaxy or anything else is a rather egotistical perspective. And it's to assume a position that's not really ours to assume, if you know what I mean. Really, like, you're assuming control over things that are not really within your control, and losing focus on what should be in your control, which is yourself. Each and every person should be focused on controlling themselves. This is why Kane posted this thing last night about leadership and about how to be a good leader and how to be a good leader. But this is very much appealing to people's will to power. And so I just asked the question. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, because I myself used to want to be the boss. I wanted to be the boss. But the reason I wanted to be the boss, and I asked, why would anyone want that? Why would anyone want to be that? Why would anyone want to be the best leader? Why would anyone want to be a leader at all? Striving to be a leader. Why are they striving to be a leader? And I'm just genuinely asking the question, because everybody will have different reasons to want to be a leader. For example, for me, I just wanted to be flourishing. I just didn't want to be stagnant. I wanted to feel I was moving forward. Flourishing, we call it in Stoicism, flourishing. You just want to feel you're moving forward, that you're progressing through life, that you're not like stagnant water, sitting, festering, going nowhere. And this is what makes people miserable, especially people who choose security and comfort. They're like stagnant water. They're just, life loses all meaning because they're not like a river. They're not flowing into the sea. They're just stagnant. Do you know what I mean? They're just stagnant. So I felt like, that, but then again, with my conditioning, to be successful was to be flourishing. The solution of success. And as I say, life is perception. I'm not going to impose mine on you, but I'll tell you my conceptual experiences. So I decided I'm going to stay relating to you my conceptual experiences, and then I urge you to think for yourself. But I'm not going to do, like, I listened to a thing yesterday with Carl Jung about the anima and animus and everything else, and I just said to myself, Jesus, I like Jung and all, but that's complete bollocks. Do you know what I mean? From my current perspective, I just said I like Jung and all, I really do, and I like a lot of what he says, but it was a complete bollocks narrative. Like, it was just a bollocks narrative about the anima and animus, and what made it bollocks was the generalization. Men do this, men do that. People the anima and the animus, and when you don't embrace this and when you don't do this, this happens and this happens. But these are big fat generalizations. Now, if there's one thing, now there's a couple of things now that caused me to reflect on the cognitive behavioural therapy course yesterday. Number one was when Kane was talking about the leadership thing. In that same cognitive behavioural therapy course, if I remember correctly, because it's about 5 years ago, he was talking about a man who was very, very successful and who made it to the top, but was still empty inside. Even though he's a very successful man, he couldn't understand why he was so empty inside. Do you know what I mean? And this is in the same course, he talked about trying to fill an internal void with external things, and it can't be done. But this is just from his own course. And then what else was it as well? Jesus, I'm after losing it now. From his own course, filling the external void, the internal void with external things. So something else from the course doesn't matter anyway. I forget. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But this was about the same leadership thing. Anyway, but. Yeah, so these, yes, that's another thing from his course. The big fat generalizations. And this is the big problem with psychology. The big fat generalizations. You take, for example, Peterson coming on there, making his videos, and they're big fat generalizations. Big fat narratives that people adapt to and adapt themselves to and identify with. That they identify with these stupid narratives that might be complete bollocks and completely not thinking for themselves. They're not thinking for themselves. I wanted to tell you a fucking story, but now I'm fucking running out of time. I wanted to tell you two fucking stories actually, but he's writing these big fat narratives that people aren't thinking for themselves. They're just identifying with these stupid narratives. Do you know what I mean? That like these stupid narratives, like Peterson with the transgender, the female emotional states, the male emotional states, and she was there. Oh yeah, when I used to be a tomboy, and oh yeah, I understand myself now. No, you don't, you stupid cunt. Anyway, I'll tell you one quick story. I think I've time to tell you one quick story. I want to tell you about thinking for yourself. When I was coming across the Europe, the first time I was coming across Europe on my travels on my way to the Philippines, and in a hostel that I was staying in, I met this Hare Krishna. Yeah. I met a Hare Krishna, and Hare Krishnas, they're the Hindus. They're the first. As he said to me, the Bhagavad Gita is untouched for 5,000 years. It's not bastardized like the Bible is. It's untouched. But in the Bhagavad Gita, God explains himself. In the Bhagavad Gita. And I said, so is that so? And then he goes to me, and we were after going outside and we smoked a joint, and then we came back in and we sat down, and he says to me, but nobody really talks to God. No, just come out, nobody talks to God. Nobody talks to God. Just come out with this. And I just sat there looking at him. And I wasn't going to say I do or anything else, because I knew fucking well that he talked to God as well. He was after being in 68 different countries. He used to do websites. He did website design. And of course, the first thing I did was try to enlist him to do a website for me, because I at the time I had a psychedelic therapist, and I was trying to enlist him to do a website for me. Now his design was fantastic. But he's had to be in 68 different countries. And he says to me then, nobody talking. And I sat there and I knew fucking well that he too talked to God. Now, when I questioned this, God said to me that he talks to whoever he pleases. Well, she talks to whoever she pleases. Well, it all depends. As I said, the universe manifests itself in different ways. But the first thing he said to me was then, he said to me in the conversation then about how the Hare Krishnas don't eat meat. They don't eat meat. And I said, why don't you? And he says to me, well, we don't believe it's right to take another living being's soul to feed your own. And I says, oh, yeah, that's very interesting. That's a very valid point. I'll have to think about that. And I thought about it, and then he left me a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, I read the first few chapters of Bhagavad Gita, 2 or 3 chapters, and it was very interesting, because by my interpretation, it was a war between the finite and the infinite. In other words, a war between the finite, and the infinite. Basically, if you read my comment about Schopenhauer, I said he was hopelessly trapped in the finite. You can read the comment. Anyway, I may hurry on with this. But then I said to my soul after a few days, first of all, when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I wouldn't tell you lies, the eyes were burning out of my head. I had to close the book. I said, the eyes are burning out of my head. And then I said, my soul said to me, stay stoic, my friend. And I said, yeah. I left the bag of Vegeta there. But then I said to my soul about eating the meat, and my soul said, yeah, it's all right to eat meat as long as they're farmed humanely and killed humanely. He said, you're just helping them move up. And I said, and he said, all nature cannibalizes itself. And I said, yeah, I agree with you. And I said, all nature cannibalizes itself. So I continue to eat meat. Bye, I may go.